My name is Hakan Bledsoe. I'm 18. My pronouns are he, him, and my favorite color is orange.
My name's Calvin. I'm 15 years old. I go to One Stone. I use he, him pronouns.
My name is McNay. I use they, them pronouns. My gender identity is non-binary, specifically agender.
I'm James. I'm 17. My pronouns are he and him.
Hi, I'm Callie. I have she, her pronouns, and I'm 15.
My name is Abby. I use she, her, hers pronouns.
I think that a lot of the teachers are kind of afraid of it because we have such a diverse student body that they are like afraid of offending anyone or like making assumptions about any sexual orientation or gender, and we rarely get the spiel on like consent and how sex can like make you feel. No one ever talks about it, and I think that if people did, then students would be a lot more informed and go into exploring their sexualities in a more safe and comfortable way.
I think there's a lot of components to inclusive sex ed. The first thing is like making sure that we're inclusive of all genders, like whether you're trans or non-binary. So just inclusivity based on gender and sexuality. Not only talking about like cis straight sex, but also just having some really good representation for queer sex. Another important thing that I think is necessary is talking about consent. We learn like biologically how sex occurs, but we don't learn about how it should and the sociological aspects of it. Planned Parenthood has a really comprehensive inclusive sex ed like documentation and things like that, and there's like 6 or 8 aspects, I believe. And one of those is healthy relationships, so I think that also should come into play.
One of the first things you need to do is say that this is a safe space and make that clear. Because people don't usually teach it, I feel like porn isn't a very good depiction of what sex actually looks like, especially for like gay and lesbian relationships. Realizing like safe things like dental dams for like lesbians and like condoms, even if you're not going to get pregnant, it's good for like diseases, STDs, like that still is a very important thing to teach, like STDs and safe sex. Consent is key.
As sexual education that tries not to alienate certain people, just something that allows everybody to come away with something, you know, whether it's me, a bi Asian kid, can walk away with the same understanding as, say, a heterosexual white kid. Solid 6. I wouldn't say that it was the worst, but a lot of the instructors I did get really weren't that appreciative of questions, and I've actually did have one who straight up just told me to leave the room, and I wasn't allowed in for like 4 or 5 minutes just because he was angry that I was talking about an STD.
I'd rate it about a 3 or a 4. I had a Catholic school education. They made sure to talk about abstinence and involve Jesus with it. It made people feel ashamed about experiencing sexuality and their natural hormones.
I would give it a 1 because I didn't have any sex ed, but I did get some like knowledge in a sense through biology class, so I at least learned some stuff, but that was much later on in my education. I think the first step is making sex ed mandatory and also beginning it in younger grades. I go to Renaissance and I did not have a drop of sex ed because the way that our curriculum is set up, you can choose a different class, and I know a large portion of students did that. And so I think that the number one thing that needs to be changed, having sex ed be mandatory, and then obviously like we need to adjust and look at the curriculum, make sure that it's inclusive.
I never had sex education. When I started becoming like sexually active, I didn't really like know certain things, and I didn't know that things like dental dams exist. There's like some sources on the internet that have taught me what I have learned, where I can go, where do I get these types of things, and I feel like that's what people need to be taught.
Well, I think that sex ed really doesn't really do a very good job at teaching you that you won't have sex like right after the class ends. You're probably not going to have sex within the first 5 years of it ending, and you don't even have to have sex at all. It doesn't really teach you that you can abstain. It doesn't really teach you that there's other sexualities out there besides for straight and maybe even gay sometimes.
They never taught us about resources through having an abstinence-only education. People I knew ended up dropping out because teen pregnancy, because they didn't know like how to use condoms, how to work those type of things. They just scared us away with tactics about how scary pregnancy is or how bad STDs are. I didn't know dental dams even existed until probably about like a year after sex ed.
I went to a different school before the school I go to now, and I was surrounded by a lot of people who really didn't accept me for who I was. And just the fact that I didn't portray this perfect example of male masculinity added to the stresses of school and forced me to move to a completely different school. At my newest school, I've gotten a lot more friends who have accepted me for who I am, and it's been honestly pretty great. And I wouldn't say my own identity has really become an issue at school, so I'm pretty good.
Well, it's always been a big part of my life, and at school especially, it's been kind of tough to really deal with everyone kind of judging me.
I feel like it plays a pretty moderate part of my life because it's like one of the first things people get to know about me. But like, people have so many stereotypes for like what people are supposed to look like. Just because I look like a straight woman doesn't mean that I am. Like, but also it can put like some pressure on people to be like, oh, I should change how I am to fit into the certain like conformity. I am going to stay the way I am, and people will find that out about me sooner or later.
I am a transgender. I'm a transgender male. And basically, at my old school, I went to a public school. I don't think I ever felt safe. In classrooms, people would constantly just kind of like shoulder shove me and be like it, or like call me by my birth name and stuff like that, because teachers and staff members never stopped it from happening, especially in PE settings. I couldn't get dressed in the locker room. I had to go up to the I had to go up to the nurse's office and change in there, and I felt that separation, which is just driving a barrier like further between cis and trans people. People all the time are always like, why do you wear earrings if you want people to think you're a boy? Or why do you do this or that if you want to be a boy? Even though that's a challenge I face, I'm not going to let it win. I'm going to still present how I want to present despite my gender and despite stigma around my identity.
In school, it's really difficult. I have to like make sure that my friends don't use my correct pronouns in front of teachers for fear that like they will find out and then we'll have like discrimination. Especially because our school like doesn't openly talk about gender and things like that. So it's not like I would have any form of like protections or anybody to go to if there was a concern with like discrimination or unfair grades and things like that.